Hi, everyone. I think as Ed mentioned, I showed Don, Emil, Joe, Nate, and Roger, and then Brian's joined us as well. Chief Cade won't make it, so I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. And
yeah,
we won't be able to.
Yeah, we can't really approve the minutes because we don't have anywhere close to a quorum.
Right. We are recording the meeting too.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll move on to our first update. So the RFP has closed, the national RFP, I should say, has closed. May 31st was the last day. There are 2 confirmed bidders as of now. A company called Rivada Networks, who do historically a lot of defense contracting and that type of network work, is one bidder with a consortium. It's their, they've got, I can't remember, they Cisco and who's all their partners?
Well, they have Nokia, Ericsson, Harris, Intel, an unnamed commercial carrier partner, and there's somebody, Black & Veatch Services, potentially. So
yeah, so that's one bidder. Yesterday, a company called Pacific Data Vision publicly announced that they did bid. Pacific Data Vision is the new company from a gentleman named Morgan O'Brien, who is the individual who started Nextel and actually kind of kicked off this whole post-LTE thing about 10 to 12 years ago. So his company bid, same type of thing, consortium of all kinds of different folks in there. So those are the only 2 confirmed bids. Everyone believes AT&T has bid on it as well, but AT&T has not publicly admitted that. Neither has Verizon, although the estimations are that the unnamed carrier in Rivada's bid is Verizon. So that's where we're at right now. At this point, the national RFP process, we really are out of it. There is a select group of people that we don't even know who they are going through and reviewing the bids. First, and it's still publicly stated, they hope to select a winner and have a contract signed by November 1st. So at this point, we just kind of sit back and wait and see. One of the questions we did pose to TJ Kennedy at our meeting was, what does the protest process look like, given the fact that there's a high likelihood that someone might protest this? And he said at minimum it would be 120 days for a protest period. And that's just the standard procurement protest. That does not include any kind of legal action that anyone might take. So, so that's where we're at. I don't think FirstNet will be allowed to give many updates moving forward. So really at this point, we kind of sit back and wait and see. So that's where we are on the RFP. The draft programmatic environmental impact statements.
Can we talk? And Ed, do you want to introduce Brent? We didn't do that officially for all the other people. Sorry.
Yeah, so we have the pleasure of having with us the subject matter expert for emergency medical services. His name is Brent Williams. He's here in the room. And hey, Brent, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. They call me the EMS Senior Advisor for FirstNet. I'm responsible for taking the FirstNet message both to and from the EMS community all across the country. So I travel all over, live in airports basically, but work out right out of my home. All of us that are the subject matter people work right out of our homes, so we don't even have an office in Washington. But just happy to be here. I happen to be in town. Ed and I are going to be co-presenting tomorrow at an EMS conference in Denver, so I was in town, and he very graciously invited me to stop by for the meeting today.
Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.
So the next thing is the draft PEIS. So for those of you who are not familiar with the nuances of the Environmental Protection Agency and the National and NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act, this whole process is going to be guided by NEPA, which is a very strenuous process from an environmental perspective. FirstNet has been doing the work of going through and doing kind of an initial analysis of what the environmental impact would be. It's called a public programmatic environmental impact statement. It's kind of saying what is the general environmental impact of this process going to be, and it has to be done for all major projects. Those draft PEISs are starting to be released. They've released the non-contiguous region, which is Alaska and all the islands, and they released the eastern one. Ours is expected to be released for draft in the next 60 days. So essentially, I will get to see a draft. Unfortunately, I don't believe I'm allowed to send it out to anyone before it's officially released. So I will be able to see a draft of that here soon. And then in the next 60 to 90 days, they will be coming out and doing a public hearing for the PEIS, just like they would any other big environmental, any kind of like transportation project or any kind of big project where they have these PEISs, FirstNet folks and their environmental staff will come out and we'll hold a public meeting on this environmental impact statement. Okay, so this impact statement will say things like, we don't believe that adding new radios to an existing tower has any environmental impact. And people will be allowed to have a public comment to say, yes, I agree with that, or no, I think that's completely wrong. We won't really have anything to do with that process of them being there, but we will be able to review some of the questions. One big issue that has been not really brought up, but some of us, especially in the West, that are used to some of these issues, are a little concerned about. I should there's two concerns. One is that these same environmental rules that FirstNet is working on apply to both opt-in and opt-out states. So we've asked that question and have not really gotten a straight answer to date. The other one is the idea of local zoning issues and potentially even local environmental issues about overruling. Essentially, public safety has a mechanism that, some of you might have used it. If we're going to zone a public safety tower, we can, not usurp, but, kind of push through, so to speak, if we really need a tower or something like that from a zoning perspective or environmental perspective. There's some concern that, if in the ultimate way this thing is structured, if it is a private company that has this that wins this and they're doing this work, is this essentially these exemptions that public safety has enjoyed and potentially government has enjoyed, are that ability to do those types of things going to be transferred to a private company, which there could be some concern about, if it is an AT&T or a Verizon or whomever that's the backbone of this thing, having them essentially have the ability to override local issues. So it's something that's been asked. Again, we haven't got a clear question. That's one of the things that we will be proposing once we get those that draft PIS. So with that, any questions on the RFP or the draft PIS process?
I'll just add that there will be a public meeting scheduled in Colorado on the PEIS.
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
We'll know what that is by July 11th, and I'm guessing we'll suggest somewhere in the Front Range area.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
But I don't know if those can be attended remotely or only in person.
I don't know. That's
we'll
a good
get
question.
clarity.
Yeah, we'll get clarification from the FirstNet environmental staff and go from there. So.
And the meeting won't be held before July 11th. We'll just know by then where it'll be. It'll be held once the notice is published.
Any questions? I'm going to skip the meeting review until we get through all the other updates, just to have some conversation about that. So let's just go ahead and move forward with metro area engagement. FirstNet has been engaging in some specific targeted outreach with metro areas. They're looking, I think in each state, they're looking at kind of the larger metropolitan areas, just making sure that the large metro chiefs, fire chiefs, police chiefs, EMS folks, have some targeted outreach. They've specifically mentioned, obviously, Denver, the Springs, and Fort Collins as Aurora. I'm sorry, Denver, Aurora, and the Springs as the three kind of, actual municipalities they might be reaching out directly to. So just to give everyone a heads up, we've talked with folks that we know in Aurora and the Springs and Denver, just to give us a heads up. So we're working with FirstNet on, making sure that we just have knowledge about that. But if any of you work with those folks, there might be some contacts regarding specific outreach to those major metropolitan areas. Any questions? Okay. NTIA update. Kim, you wanted to do that one?
Sure. I had our quarterly grant call with the NTIA last week. I won't bore you with the general details, but the one piece that we actually consider good news is the NTIA provided an update on the comment process that they're going to step through for the State Alternative Plan Program, or SAP is what they're calling it right now. And they were able to confirm finally, it had all been speculation previously, that comments to that process, or that comment period, will be allowable under the grant, which is good news for us because we won't have to identify alternative funds to support any comments we wanted to put in, since we're pretty serious about looking at or ensuring that we understand what that entire process is and how that would impact us in light of doing a pretty strong alternative plan. So that's good news. The one thing they don't know is they don't know when that's going to be published. NTIA is some other stuff going on. an executive level that they're dealing with. So they weren't ready to specify a date, obviously. And then the other thing we're waiting to hear on is if they will apply the allowability rule to the comments to the FCCs, showing the interoperability, either comments or proposed rulemaking process, which will, is similar in a regulatory sense from what a state has to step through to opt out. So that's good news, and we'll keep you updated as that progresses.
Any questions? Okay, State of Student RAM planning update, RFI update. RFI is still open. We pushed it out a couple of times as FirstNet pushed out their RFP deadline. I did it appropriately so that we wanted to give folks a chance to get through the push of the FirstNet RFP to respond to our RFI. So our RFI is open until June 30th, or no, wait,
July 1st.
July 1st, that's right. Too many RFIs up. July 1st, we have received a few responses so far, a couple of them very good responses. So hopefully we'll get some more, by July 1st. We have heard some folks say that they might not respond to the RFI because they're still busy working with FirstNet on, as FirstNet asks questions from the RFP process, they may not have the resources. So we may not have as many responses as we'd hoped on the RFI, but hopefully we'll still get some good responses. So, any questions? Okay, working groups. You know that one, Kim?
Sure. We've met. I've convened meetings with all three working groups in the past month. I would say the most important thing is that we're trying to get engagement on the QPP, the Quality of Service Priority and Preemption Consultation Task Team through these working groups. I have commitments from Paula Creasy, Scott Newman, and Mick McQuilton to potentially attend our CTT event on August 25th in Montana. Ed knows of one other person, so they're asking for up to 5 stakeholders. So if there's anybody interested, I did include the governing body, although it's kind of not necessarily their purview, being necessarily technical or operational folks. Some of you are, some of you aren't. If you are interested, please let me know. You're also welcome to just go through and kind of look at and learn and provide comment on the material if you're interested. But that's kind of the focus of those groups until we have some more activities as outputs of the RFI process or as outputs of we step through state planning. I guess I'll just plan with the operational group. Do you have any input on that right now?
As far as?
If you're going to have any activities with the operational group other than the CTTs?
Yes. Yeah, we'll have the next scheduled meeting. We'll be going out this week, and we have an outline of some, not only those monthly meetings, but some other things where we're going to try and get specifically down into like the emergency medical folks and the fire folks and the LE folks, and try and divide those out a little bit so we can understand the specific concerns operationally that those folks will have, and then also merge them all together because on a lot of events there's a merging of 3, 4, 5, 6 different agencies, whether it be emergency management, fire, EMS, police, etc.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay, project updates, ISSI integration paper. Kim or Emil, you want to walk through that?
Sure. I'll just give you a brief introduction and ask Emil to just give a very high-level overview of the ISSI. It's a P25 to LTE, P25 ISSI to LTE white paper that Emil drafted for us, really so Colorado would understand, because it's kind of a leader in the nation with regards to ISSI. We have 3 P25 networks connected here, and well, multiple P25 networks, but let me correct that. 3 vendors of, I believe, 5 or 6 P25 networks. And so we asked Emil to kind of just take a look at Colorado's architecture, provide a white paper on considerations or things Colorado should be aware of as that piece progresses. That document was provided to all of you, but Emil, do you mind just providing a few highlights?
Sure, and I can, if you want, share the screen if you want real quickly and just kind of walk through it.
Sure. You can what?
Can you just do it? Is there something I need to do?
Are you able to take the share, Emil, or?
I am not. I think you have to give it to me. I tried to.
So maybe you can stop, Ed.
Just
stop your share. Hit the red button.
Right here?
No. Stop share up above.
Okay. There we go.
There you go.
All right. How's that?
All right, so let me go here and do that. And okay, do you see the document?
Yes.
Yep, we can.
Okay, great. So thanks, Kim and Ed and Brian for the introduction. So you guys have the document available. Kim provided it. Just to kind of quickly go through it, the first part of it is an overview of P25 and ISSI. So you may have heard of that, but you may not understand what it is or what it does. So the first section really goes over what is P25 in general, what is, more importantly, the inner subsystem interface. And this is the IP connection that connects these disparate P25 networks, standardized interface. So that interface has been deemed as the entry point for other networks to join in. So voice over IP bridges, a lot of you may be familiar with ACU 2000 units or ACU 1000s from JPS Raytheon or other voice bridges like Wave and Moto Bridge. Those all typically connect through a BSI interface, which is a derivative of the ISSI. It's an IP-based connection. And what that essentially allows is a RF subsystem, this RFSS, which is communicating to the fixed station, which is the RF portion of it, the radio tower talking to a subscriber unit, to connect via IP to another RFSS or another system. So it allows a form of roaming or interoperability between networks. As long as your frequency channels are programmed in, you're able to communicate. So the initial intent was to look at what does the state have deployed. So in there started to take a look at the P25 networks, as Kim had mentioned, that are deployed and starting to integrate. And some committees have begun to tie in the statewide DTRS system, which has 82,000 plus radios out there and 1,000 state, local, county, even federal agencies utilizing this. So of that, there's a whole lot of work being done by the Public Safety Communications Subcommittee, or PSCS, and Gary, I don't know if he's on, he heads that up, and they've done a lot of work to help cities and municipalities join these networks in. So part of this is depicted here to show what's existing systems like DTRS, and now they're hooked into Front Range and Westminster, and then potential future connections that are taking place. And this is the existing architecture that's going forth, and there's all types of issues surrounding that with regards to implementation and different vendors and integration of that effort and the amount of necessity for interoperability. But looking forward, we think this is a good model to tie LTE into. So for the statewide system, whether that is a Colorado system or FirstNet or part of a national public safety broadband network, how do we as the state prepare to connect in P25 effectively to make it not only functional and operational, but cost effective and be able to maintain that? So looking at options for LTE interoperability, there's a couple of different options on the table. The first one is what they call OTT applications, or over-the-top applications, and there's now over 150 applications available on Google Play or Apple that do push to talk, and you can download a variety of them, and I've listed some of those here that are popular, like Beyond and Zello and Voxer and so forth. And they offer a lot of features that Mission Critical Push to Talk just doesn't offer. They have chat and text integration. You can do file transfer, so you can take a picture, send it over your PTT. You can even take a video on some and do push to video. You can do unlimited talk group creations, so you can have custom talk groups. Geofencing, so you can show a real-time map, draw a map with your hand on your phone. Anyone who enters in that zone gets added to a talk group. So there's a lot of neat features that we hope that Mission Critical Push to Talk can take into place. But these technologies are available now. Some of them are very low cost or freemium type services, and they integrate well with most of the smartphone market. So there's a lot of positives to that. And big agencies like the Army is using these, and National Capital Region, Capitol Police are using these OTT applications. So there is precedent for government agencies to utilize this in a mission critical way. And they work on a variety of different access technologies. You can be on 3G, you can be on 4G, Wi-Fi, wired. You can even be on your desktop. So there's a lot of functionality there. So this just kind of paints what's available there. Then there's the mission critical push to talk deployment. I'll get there. So mission critical push to talk. That is a new standard that's being pushed in LTE, and so there's discussion here to kind of discuss what's being done there, and a lot of the work that was formerly done by PSCR and now is being driven by FirstNet is helping drive that through the standards process. So the security aspects, call control, identity management, connections into existing land mobile radio networks, whether they be P25, Tetra, or whatever. In our case, they would be P25. How you do all the configuration management, all those things are being taken care of in a standardized way. So it may not have all the whiz-bang features that an OTT app has, but it has the functionality and security and interoperability, at least that's the hope. And there's several vendors that are deploying and demonstrating systems right now. Samsung's probably leading the way in South Korea, and they'll have their system fully integrated by the end of this year. And this is just a diagram of mission critical push to talk. You can look at the spaghetti diagram, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. The big one was, how do we integrate that in? Because looking at Colorado, regardless of how the public safety LTE network gets deployed, it will happen in phases or over time, and perhaps not all agencies will subscribe to the public safety LTE network. Some of them may have existing contracts with a carrier and beyond them. So how do we integrate in users that are on a potentially different system? So you have a public safety LTE network by FirstNet, you have Verizon and AT&T subscribers. How do we integrate them all in? So this section really talks about how to integrate all these disparate different technologies in. And so looking at an ISSI gateway, and on the left we have, for an example, the ADCOM LTE network, Adams County Network, and a commercial LTE Evolved Packet Core. And so establishing connections over VPNs on the internet and then going through a central routing function at the state will then take us to the mission critical push to talk server. And this is already being done to some extent on a trial phase with the Harris Beyond server that's deployed at, I believe, at FRCC. And they're demonstrating how a commercial carrier push to talk on a Verizon phone, for instance, can push to talk all the way to a DTRS radio over the internet and have good functionality. I think one of the issues to note is that the question of end-to-end security and encryption is often brought up. And it sounds great, and in some instances it's necessary. We have EMS representatives on the phone from FirstNet, and so for HIPAA requirements, what is necessary for that? And the reason I bring that up is if you have to do end-to-end encryption, some of the methodologies and that are being pushed forward by vendors and certain vendors are very expensive. They're basically putting the P25 radio a voice codec into the LTE phone, and that drives the cost up. So for instance, like the Harris Beyond system, that app per phone is about $300 per phone. That's sometimes more cost than the phone itself. So, and then you have to maintain licensing, over time. It gets to be quite expensive, and it doesn't scale very well. So I think hopefully vendors will look at this and come up with better solutions, and there are better ones out there than trying to shoehorn a P25 radio into a LTE phone. So with that, I know I'm taking up a lot of time. There's at the end of this, there's a lot of issues that are brought up and suggested solutions. with regards to coordinating efforts across the state, creating a working group to do that, creating common lists of talk groups and services so that whoever the state integrates with, it can be done efficiently and centrally. And then, how do we do ongoing sustainability? So anyway, that's all of it in a nutshell.
That's it? Jeez.
We should probably just be able to share things with you on the meeting.
Any questions for Emil on the paper? I believe, Emil, have you shared this with PSCS and Gary's working group yet, or is that?
I will be.
Yeah.
I just wanted the board,
Okay.
the governing body to see it first.
Yeah, so
They've seen a draft.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so Kim will be sharing this with PSCS and as well as Gary Pasniak's kind of working group on the ISIS side.
The CTNC.
So, there's really nothing that binds those folks to follow this paper. We just thought it was a good use of resources to have someone look at this from a long-term perspective as the folks that are managing all the disparate and independent, LMR networks start to work together to figure this thing out, including the state. Kim will be presenting that, and then we'll be here to support, as those folks move forward in their work. If they want continued involvement from us, we will be here to support them. So, okay, real quick, let's go back up. So the last thing before we get into Ed's outreach is kind of a review of the May 19th meeting. I think for the most part, the feedback I've received to date has been mostly frustration at kind of the lack of flexibility in the process, the lack of, I think a lot of folks said, really, we have no input on the process and what we get, that we're really not a true partner, that it's mostly, we're a customer essentially in this whole situation. So that's kind of the result that I've heard back. In terms of next steps, I don't know if the meeting really impacts how we move forward. As I said, on the RFP side, we're pretty much, there's nothing more for us to do. That train's left the station and is barreling down towards its whatever final destination it ends up at. In terms of ongoing consultation, we are participating, as Kim mentioned, in the working groups and the QPPs. Or the consultations, the CCTs. So that's, for in terms of an interface with FirstNet, I think at a functional level, we'll continue to do the things we're doing, having the SMEs come out and present, doing those types of things. But in terms of from a strategic and policy perspective, I don't really know how or if that the meeting on the May 19th really impacts how we move forward much, other than, does the board still believe that we should continue to actively pursue an alternative plan and continue down that path? I think that would be, my only question to the board would be, does the meeting change your perspective on how we should move forward as a state? So with that, I would throw it out for any comments on the phone, talking about either your thoughts on the meeting or, how we move forward. Anyone? I can see who's on the phone. I know there's folks.
There's at least one person out there.
There's at least one person on the call that has an opinion. So.
Yeah, I would share with you what my dad used to say about opinions, but it's probably not politically correct. This is Joe Ribeiro. My takeaway from the meeting, and I like the way you described it, Brian. We're pretty much a customer here, and the feds are the 800-pound gorilla. Take it or leave it. I thought was the tone of that meeting, and as distasteful as it is, and as politically incorrect as it probably is for Colorado, I'm not sure. Well, I think a private solution is probably the best business sense. That we don't own it, it's going to be a hard sale for us to get to our constituents, if you will, or our stakeholders, that this is a good business decision and that we don't own it and we're at the mercy of the feds. I think we need to find a way to advertise this, that even though we would prefer to own it, it makes better business sense to partner in a public-private venture.
Okay.
And just get on with it. I think I expressed before, I'm not sure that expending a lot of energy to try to come up with an opt-out solution that's probably going to bring us back to where we are with go ahead and partner with a national solution is going to be worth the effort.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments?
Yeah, Brian, this is Don.
Get done.
Couple things. I think that, for one, I'm going to give a good note to the meeting that I think we put FirstNet on continual notice that our intention is not to back down and they need to listen to us, which I think in the long run may get us more bang than what other states are going to do. I don't think continuing down the path of our RFP with a potential option is going to hurt us. In the end, it's probably not something that we're going to be able to do. And just looking at their slideshow, as you saw, whether it was intentional or not, but the road to opt out never connects back into the other road. So they put a very grim picture on it, and I kind of expected as much. I think we need to continue down the path where we are, and then in the end, we're going to have to make a recommendation and a decision. But if we don't have an alternative, if we don't have a plan that we continue down the road with, then definitely no option. I think the option for us going on our own is less, but I would not take it off the table. That's just my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, and I think on that point, Don, and this has probably been one of my biggest contentions is, I think to an extent, FirstNet is trying to scare folks away from opting out. And ironically, I think they could honestly care less if Colorado opts out. I doubt we're going to be a net positive state in their business model. I doubt anyone in the West, except for maybe California, is going to be a net positive state. So I think it's ironic in that we're the ones pushing it. And, if we opt out, it's probably not going to have big significance. If New York opts out, that's going to have a huge impact on their business model. So, on the opt-out process, I think they are potentially exaggerating a bit on the process of opting out. Especially on the FCC side, I think it's pretty clear and cut on the technical perspective. I think that is that there's some guidelines that have been put in place. Now on the NTIA side, on the business and the financial side, that's where I think it does get a lot more gray in terms of the process. So, as I've stated, it is a big hill to climb, if it has to be done, but I don't think it's insurmountable if it's the best to me. And my goal has been to say, present a very clear-cut and open option, like you said. So, we may present the fact that we could build a much better network, but we just can't financially pull it off. That might be our recommendation. I think, but I agree with you that having that option gives us leverage. And that's kind of my thought is that, to me, in any negotiation, you want as much leverage as you can. And that's really the way I see this whole thing, for the next couple of years is a negotiation, whether or not FirstNet wants to, attempt to negotiate or not. So I think the policy, the procedures to opt out, absent some of the policies they put in place, is not as daunting as they make it out to be. It is daunting, though. So yeah. Any other thoughts from the board or anyone on the phone? Feel free to, any of the public that's on the phone, feel free to jump in as well.
That was our whole board. So.
No, that was it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well,
Don and Joe.
Yeah.
Holy, that's all we have. Okay.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
Brian, this is Scott Newman from Aurora, and I would just like to reiterate what I said on the last call. And I agree that, at the end of the day, maybe this is not going to go anywhere, but I still think it's worthwhile to investigate, and understood that some agencies may not have the means or resources to dedicate towards this, and no bad on them for that. You know, that's the reality of what they're dealing with. But for those that do have the time and means to do it, I think it's worthwhile, because even at the end of the day, if we still end up going with the FirstNet network, there's other efforts that I know that you and I have spoke about before. You know, regionalized ESI nets, regionalized other efforts, the ISSI program that's going on. And a lot of these things could dovetail together nicely. And so I don't think our efforts, even though we're focusing on FirstNet, would necessarily be squandered as we can approach other things. So I just want to make sure the board knows that, or at least from the Aurora municipality perspective, this is still worthwhile to look into.
Thank you. And that's, I'm glad you brought that point up, Scott. And as we move down forward on this path of looking at, you know, what's the alternative, I think there are a lot of synergies that we can look at. And that's one of my goals, is to potentially look at some of the synergies with other efforts. And you know, Scott mentioned 911. A report just came out yesterday or the day before about 911. And we're seeing a lot of momentum towards the fact that we've got to solve this 911 problem now. And that it's got to be a concerted effort, because there are too many localities that just, they can't, they're barely making ends meet right now, let alone trying to build an entire new 911 network. So, you know, I think our path, any alternative path that we look at, I think would be impacted heavily by things such as the 911 effort and so forth. So that, you know, I think that as that, materializes, you know, that would be one of our goals, is to look at something like that and say, how does it play into FirstNet, either in an opt-in or an opt-out scenario? Again, so we can try to, you know, capitalize on the technology itself.
Brian,
Brian?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I think, Randy, is that you?
And Don.
Yeah. So it's sort of my maybe 15-second takeaway is that I think the one sort of substantive, you know, difference between you know, the state and FirstNet is really on just the coverage footprint, you know, and you know, and then sort of just having a mechanism where we could have a meaningful dialogue, you know, with FirstNet or with the selected offerer on doing that. And so I think where we're going to get a lot of, you know, insight on that is you know, once we understand, you know, more about the NTIA grant process, and, you know, we'll be doing a set of economic analyses, you know, of the network. And so then it ultimately gets down to dollars and cents of, you know, what resources are available, and what would be the gap. And, you know, if you did it yourself, you know, where would be the funding sources?
Yeah, that's a great point, Randy, and I'm glad you brought up the, you know, the different bidders. And, you know, I was actually very pleased to hear the Pacific Data Vision bid. I think that is one of the entrants that could really change the conversation a lot, because I think they bring a different perspective to the game. And so I think it's a very good point, Randy. If we go through this contractual process, you know, what comes out at the end, again, that we have no control over. But, you know, I think, you know, there is still room for that process based on the bidder's perspective. You know, all we've been hearing so far to date is what FirstNet believes, but yet, you know, I think what we heard from that meeting is that the bidder is really driving this bus, you know, in a situation. So if that bidder turns out to have a bit different perspective than maybe even FirstNet had, and wants to go down a different path, I think there could be there still is openings for us to work through that model if, again, the bidder has worked that into their business model, which, you know, we unfortunately have no idea about, but, you know, we might know. So. Was there someone else that said something?
Yeah, Brian, this is Don. And this kind of going to tie, I think it's going to help us, but for the board's information, that I got appointed to APCO's P43 working group. And that's tasked to the operation working group to identify and provide recommendations related to emergency policy issues and concerns that will occur within PSAPs as related to the receipt of processing broadband technologies, to include NextGen 911 and FirstNet. So I think this can do nothing but help us. We're going to be in on the ground floor of what it's going to look like, and I'll be able to share back with us I think a whole lot of good information as that P43 recommendation is actually built. So,
that's great, Donna. No, that'll be a big help.
Well, and Don, just so you know, I'm on the P43 governance group. And then I'm also aware we have people seated on 2 or 3 of the other groups within P43 too in Colorado. So we'll ensure, I had talked about Don with Monica about ensuring information is shared. So it's good to know. I hadn't heard you were on operations. That's great.
Yep.
Good.
So yeah, and I'll share, we had our first meeting, we've had one introduction meeting, but as we come down, we've got some deliverables, particularly for the conference that's going to be held in August. So I'll keep everybody posted.
Okay, great. Any other comments on the meeting, the May 19th meeting? Okay. So let's move on. Education and outreach updates.
Let me just try and give you a few highlights. I'm going to try something here. Let's see if this will work. So you know that those of you who are on the internet, I'll try and talk through to those who are not. You know that if you ever want to keep up with us, you can always see the upcoming events here on our homepage. And if you want to see events that are actually going on in real time, you can actually look through here and some of the things we're going to bring up, like we've been doing some training all over the country, or all over the, all over the state of Colorado. And we've been doing some overview training, which Kim was gracious enough to put down there in your important dates. We have scheduled with Signals Analytics, and Emel's been doing training all over. We've done 4 of them up to this date. And as you can see here in the Twitter feed on our website, that we were in Gunnison County. And we try to tweet out stuff so that we can get you involved, your stakeholders. And we'd really like for you to help us to promote this. In fact, if you want to know where everything's at, if you come to the news and go to current events, what that's going to do is it'll take you to where we're going to be at. So you can see we're going to be in the Northwest region next in Rifle on 6/28. We'll be doing a Northeast region. And the way that we've done these trainings is we have one scheduled in each one of the 9 all-hazard regions, and then we have, because it's just so vast and big, we have 2 in Northeast Colorado. So please go in, take that URL, send it out to all your stakeholders. This is a great event. When we were in Gunnison, we had folks that have seen us now 3 and 4 times, and they came up to Emel and they said, "Thank you so much. This really made a lot of sense, how LTE technology is going to impact what we do in public safety." So these trainings are great, and you need to be getting that word out. This is a good chance. We've tried to get it to where your stakeholders only need to travel a couple of hours to get to it. Some, in some cases, they only have to travel about 45 minutes. So anyway, make sure that that gets out there. But everything that you need is right here on the website. As you can see, the upcoming events, the Twitter feed for things that are going on. You can even see the FirstNet blog. You can find out what they're doing. And then when Kim and Brian have some real important stuff, we put it over here in the what's happening section. So we've been going around. We've been doing a lot of stuff. In our last meeting when we were in Aurora, I promised that we would be to all 64 counties and 2 tribes, and I'd have to say we have completed that. And so we are, that doesn't mean that we're finished. We are actually still going around. As you can see, we're doing the overview and training, but we're also going out to our counties that haven't seen the presentation and coverage modeling. We're still doing that. We've been we're still going to all the major conferences. In fact, this last week, Brian and I were at the critical issues for the Colorado Fire Chiefs, where he gave a, just basically the lowdown on where we're at with that process. We also had Russ Gibson from the SWIC's office. Roger Bishop had sent Russ over, and he gave a little bit of a download on what they're doing and to show that synergy and how the synergies are working together. So anyway, next week, for example, we will be at the Colorado Association Chief of Police Joe Ribeiro has got us in there this year, and we appreciate that, Joe. We'll also be at CML doing a presentation. That'll be Kim, Brian, myself, and Bob Pfeiffer will be doing that. I'll also be speaking next week at the 99th Annual Colorado State Fighters Association. Got a lot of stuff going on. I won't bore you with all the details. We will publish that so that you can see where we've been and what we've been doing. Nationally, I spoke at the Wireless Infrastructure Show in Dallas, and then last week I was at the Mountain Rescue Association in Port Angeles, Washington. So we're everywhere. We're getting that influence out. And Kim, do you have any events that you want to highlight that you've been a part of?
No.
She's got some stuff coming up, and we'll let you know when that comes up. So anyway, moving down, the newsletter, we've actually decided this month, or for the summer months, we're only going to publish every couple of months. So you'll see an edition this month, and then probably another one in the month of August. And then depending on whether or not we need to get on a monthly cadence again, we'll kind of take things in stride and see where we're at and what kind of information is coming out. But things have slowed down a little bit as far as some of the updates that we need to give. So we'll put all that together, and you'll see that this month. Still working on website, but as you know, with Kristen cutting up, I'm sorry.
They don't know that.
Oh, they don't? Well, why don't you announce what has happened? Go ahead, please.
No. We regret to inform you that Kristen lasted about 6 weeks. She went back to a job in oil and gas. Surprised us all. We didn't see that coming. We hope to be interviewing next week. We have a group of applicants, and we'll keep you posted. Hopefully we'll have the person starting by the next meeting.
And last more than
6 weeks.
So with that, go ahead.
Hey, Ed, this is Roger. Could you make sure that for the chiefs of police that you send information to Russell and myself, because we may want to, if possible, tag along like we did with the fire chiefs?
I'll do that as soon as we're done, and just so you'll know what's in Grand Junction.
Okay. And I'm out of town next week, so it would be Russell if we're able to do it. Thanks.
Outstanding. And the offer still stands. If you want us to take a video of your mug, we'll do that as well. So anyway.
Okay.
I'm not getting any response from that. That was tongue-in-cheek.
No, I said okay. Right. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So anyway, with that announcement with Kristen, actually I put a lot of stock in her going through and helping us with the website refresh. So that's going to be prolonged a little bit. Again, everything is done. We've got the new look and everything, but we really, because we're changing some of the structure, we really need somebody to pick through the folders and make sure that we're pointing. A lot of stuff that we used to put on our website, now that we'd actually taken from FirstNet, we're actually just going to divert people to FirstNet's website and not put a lot of stuff on the website that's not related to, directly to FirstNet Colorado. So we'll go on with that. We're continuing to do a lot of things in the marketing area, and we'll share that with you as it's important. The online training, we are closing in on it. In fact, we have a deadline of the end of this month to have all the updates done on our first revision. Let me say that a little bit differently. What we've done is we've taken, as you know, the Texas training, and we've made it Colorado specific. And so in that, all we've really had to do for this first iteration is we just had to go in and change things. For example, this past week, we've been trying to get permission from the Denver Broncos to use their logo as well as their name, and we were able to get that permission because there's one slide that is in this online training that talks about, when we had the Denver Bronco parade in the city of Denver, AT&T and Verizon and Sprint, they were overwhelmed with users, and public safety didn't have that network to use. And so that's why we need FirstNet. So anyway, we're working on that training. We should have that up and running very shortly. We have a few things that we're pulling together, and that's what I've devoted my time to for the next week and a half. I already had mentioned the LTE overview and training. Again, please, one of the things that you can do to help us the most is to promote those and make sure that we have as many folks who would be interested or there. it is a really good training, and it really gives our stakeholders a chance. You don't even really have to be that technical to understand it, but it gives them a real good grasp on how LTE technology is actually going to change the way that we do public safety communications. So you have some other stuff that we've sent out. Is there any questions on anything I've said or anything that's been put out? If not, I'm finished.
Okay. AdCom LTE update. Is Joel or Mike, anyone from AdCom on? I don't think so.
Brent has an update for us, actually.
On AdCom?
Yeah, he does.
All right.
Okay.
Do you mind sharing?
Wow.
I just got a news blast today out of our office in Ruston that said that the final approvals have been granted for the power, the AC power.
For DIA?
Sites.
For DIA? Holy cow.
That had been a long time coming,
That's
but
a long
they finally have it.
Okay, so it sounds like...
Now it's down to was it General Dynamics? Who's the vendor out there?
General
General Dynamics. They said they were going to now they have power, they're actually going to start doing the optimization of getting the site.
Wow, holy cow. Okay, so it sounds like DA might be up in that. That's good.
That news blast just came out this morning.
How long does it take to get power at an airport? All right.
Already has power.
Already has plenty of power, I would hope. Yes. Okay, legal issues. We have been real quick. We've been talking with some of the local municipalities. You know, we really haven't done a thorough review of the legislation and all the interpretations and everything. So the local jurisdictions have asked us kind of how they can do that. We are working with CML-CCI and a group called CCUA, which is a kind of an industry group of local jurisdictions, to try to allow for some third-party legal review. There's a local lawyer here in town that does a lot of telecom law and is well respected, has done a lot of work with the FCC, just to kind of go through everything and just, you know, give us a very, you know, thorough review of everything that's there to do that. So we are working with those groups on that, and hopefully we'll have, in the next month or so, we'll have some updates on that. Any questions? Okay. Old, new business. We'll do the new first project coordinator position Kim told you about, so we're actively pursuing that. Hopefully we'll get that done quickly. Old, you know, funding for alternative planning activities, something still kind of, you know, keep in the back of your mind that as we, you know, if we do choose to go down that path, to Joe and Don's point, it's a big task, and we're going to need to figure out how we accomplish that. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. On a more pressing issue, I am submitting through the state budget process for fiscal year, I got to think this through, for fiscal year 18, the budget to continue both Ed's position and our new project coordinator position, to continue that. I do have support from Suma, our CIO, on the subject, but navigating the state budget process right now is a challenge. So I'm working with folks to do that. So just know that I am working on trying to get basically the entire FirstNet staff to continue to be paid for. It might be a challenge. I might be reaching out, Don, I might be reaching out to you guys and potentially Stan, just for some support, just to say, you know, in the state budget process, that you guys support our effort to expend resources on continuing Ed and the person to be named soon as we move forward. So I am working on a state level to continue that. But again, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind that at some point we're going to have to figure out how we keep this thing rolling with funding. The SLGP grant runs out at the end of calendar year 17, which is halfway through our fiscal year 18. So the good news is that, you know, when I do the budget request, my first year budget request is actually fairly small because I'm only paying for half a year of their salaries and expenses. So that bodes well for us. So yeah, that's where that. Any questions? Okay.
Just one new item. Do you want to mention the legislative hearing?
Oh, yes. Next Tuesday, the 21st at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, the Senate Commerce and Technology Committee, which is the Senate committee that oversees FirstNet, will be having hearings. You know, the past, it's been a, you know, there's actually been the senators, there's been a few tough questions from senators. Most of it's been, as you expect, kind of your typical hearing. I have been in contact with Senator Gardner's office to provide some backdrop, and Senator Gardner's office was at the May 19th meeting along with Senator Bennett and Representative Perlmutter's office. So, yeah, if you have nothing to do next Tuesday at 7:30 our time, you can go on the website. They're just Google Senate
I'll send the link when it's in the meeting.
And you can go and it's all webcast. So that should be an interesting hour or two. Anything for the good of the order? Any other issues anyone wants to talk about? Okay. As of right now, our next meeting is July 21st. Given vacation schedules and stuff, we'll probably, throw out to see how many people we're going to have, so we might, maybe if there's nothing big to update on, we might push that back to August. So we'll see. We'll be in touch. Okay. If no one else has anything, then I think we're done. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.